Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little darker, a time of vows and violence and very little choice. We're diving into what marriage was really like during the Middle Ages. Forget the fairy tale weddings and romantic courtship Hollywood sold you. The truth is, you probably wouldn't survive a single year being a medieval bride, and I'll explain you why today. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know in the comments where you're hearing this from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to me seeing who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background noise, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations. You've just been promised in marriage at the age of 12. The good news, you have a roof over your head. The bad news, you've never met your husband, and he's 37 years old, with 3 dead wives already buried in the churchyard, where you'll say your vows next month. You wait before dawn, because there is no choice. The cold seeps through the shutters and settles in your bones. Your mother shakes your shoulder and tells you to get dressed. Today, you meet the man who bought you. Not you exactly, but your womb and the sons it might carry, and the dowry your father scraped together from selling 2 pigs and his best plough horse. You are worth less than the horse, but more than the pigs. This is how worth is measured here. This is how it has always been measured. The dress you wear belonged to your older sister who died in childbirth 3 winters ago. It still smells like her, like fear and milk and blood that never quite washed out. The fabric is rough against your skin, wool that scratches and pulls. There are stains on the sleeves that your mother tried to scrub away, but the brown marks remain. Some stains become part of the cloth. Some things cannot be undone. Your father counts coins in the corner, while your mother braids your hair. She pulls too tight and you want to cry, but crying is not allowed today. Today you must smile. Today you must be grateful. Today you must pretend that being sold is the same as being loved. Your mother's hands shake as she works. She was 12 once too. She remembers. The coins make small sounds against the wooden table. Clink, clink, clink. 30 pieces of silver for your virginity and your compliance. 30 pieces for the right to put his hands on you whenever he chooses. 30 pieces for the bruises that will bloom purple and yellow across your ribs when you fail to please him. The coins are real. Everything else is pretend. You walk to the church between your parents like a criminal being led to execution. The path is muddy and your shoes are thin. The cold mud seeps through and makes your feet numb. People stare as you pass. They know what this is. They know what you are. A thing being transferred from one man to another like a cow or a chair or a bag of grain. Property that walks and breathes and bleeds once a month. The church smells like incense and mold and fear. Other girls have stood here before you. Other girls have promised to obey and serve and submit. Their promises hang in the air like smoke. The priest speaks Latin that you do not understand, but the meaning is clear. You belong to him now. You will always belong to him, until death frees you or kills you trying. Your husband-to-be stands beside you, and his breath smells like ale and rotting teeth. His hands are thick and calloused and dirty under the fingernails. These hands will touch you tonight. These hands will hurt you. These hands will hold you down when you try to pull away, but you cannot pull away. There is nowhere to go. There is no word for what he will do to you, because wives cannot be raped. Wives are property, and property cannot refuse its owner. The ring he puts on your finger is too big. It slides around and threatens to fall off, like the promises being made, like the protection you thought marriage might bring, like the love songs the minstrels sing about courtly romance and gentle nights. The ring is thin and cheap, and will turn your finger green within a week. Green like the bruises, green like your face when you vomit from carrying his child, green like the mold on the bread you will eat, because fresh bread is for men. You say the words the priest tells you to say. I promise to obey. I promise to serve. I promise to honor and submit and never say no. The words taste like ashes in your mouth, like the ashes of the girl you were this morning before you became a wife. That girl is dead now. She died in this church, surrounded by people who came to watch her burial and called it a wedding. The feast after is small and poor. Brown bread and thin ale and a chicken that was too old to lay eggs anymore. Your new husband drinks until his eyes are red and his words slur together. He laughs too loud at jokes that are not funny. He puts his hand on your leg under the table and squeezes until you gasp. This is ownership. This is what you are now. A leg to be squeezed. A body to be used. a mouth to be silenced. The other women at the table give you looks that might be pity or might be relief that it is not their daughter today. They remember their own wedding days. They remember the first time their husbands hurt them. They remember learning that screaming only made it worse. They do not tell you this because there is no point. You will learn soon enough, tonight. When the sun sets, they walk you to your new home. It is smaller than your father's house and darker and smells like the animals that live underneath it. The floor is dirt packed hard by years of walking. The walls are thin and let in the cold and the rain and the sounds of other people's misery. This is where you will live until you die. This is where you will birth his children and bury them when they die young. This is where you will grow old and bent and grey, if you are lucky enough to grow old at all. Your husband shows you the bed you will share. It is a wooden frame with ropes stretched across it, and a mattress stuffed with straw that rustles when you move. The blanket is thin and full of holes, and smells like the man who has slept under it for years. Soon it will smell like you too, like your blood and your tears and your sweat, like your fear and your resignation and your slow death, he tells you to undress, and you do, because refusing is not possible. Refusing means beatings. Refusing means being locked in the cellar with the rats. Refusing means being sent back to your father in disgrace, and your father will not take you back because a used wife has no value. You are trapped in this room with this man forever. The door might as well be bricked up. The windows might as well be sealed. Your skin is pale and goosebumped in the cold air. You have never been naked in front of a man before. You have never been naked in front of anyone before. Your mother told you nothing about this moment except to lie still and think of something else until it was over. She told you it would hurt, but that hurt was a woman's lot in life. She told you to be grateful for a husband because unmarried, women starve. He looks at your body like a farmer looking at livestock, checking for flaws, checking for value, checking for the things he paid for. You are thin because there was never enough food. You are pale because girls do not work in the sun. You are small because you are still a child despite the ring on your finger and the vows you spoke. But you are his now, and size does not matter to him. Age does not matter to him. Consent does not matter to him. The first time he puts his hands on you, it feels like being torn apart. Not just your body, but your soul. The part of you that was still innocent dies in that moment. The part of you that believed adults would protect you bleeds out onto the straw mattress. You bite your lip to keep from crying out, but the taste of blood fills your mouth anyway. Salt and copper and the end of childhood. He does not speak to you during this. You are not a person to him. You are a vessel, a receptacle, a thing that exists for his use. When he is finished, he rolls over and begins to snore. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling and feeling wetness between your legs that might be blood or might be something else. You do not know because no one told you what to expect. No one prepared you for this. Morning comes because morning always comes, even when you wish it would not. You wake to find your husband already gone, out to his fields, or his shop, or his drinking. The house is quiet except for the sound of mice in the walls and water dripping somewhere you cannot see. You are alone with your new reality, alone with the soreness between your legs and the bruises on your wrists where he held you down. You try to wash yourself, but there is no hot water, and the cold water makes you shiver until your teeth chatter. The soap is harsh and burns the tender places. You scrub until your skin is raw, but you cannot scrub away what happened. You cannot scrub away what you have become. A wife, a thing owned, a body rented by the month until it produces sons or dies. Trying. Your first breakfast as a married woman is yesterday's bread and sour milk. Your husband ate the good food before he left. He ate the butter and the honey and the fresh cheese. He left you the scraps because wives eat scraps. Wives eat what husbands do not want. This too is ownership. This too is love as medieval people. Understand it. The day stretches ahead of you, empty and full of work. You must clean this house that is not your home. You must cook food for a man who hurt you. You must pretend that this is normal, that this is right, that this is what God wants for women. Obedience and suffering and silence. The other wives in the village come to visit you that first day. They bring small gifts, a bit of thread, some dried herbs, a clay pot with a crack in it. They look at you with eyes that know too much. They see the way you move carefully, like everything hurts. They see the marks on your throat where his thumbs press too hard. They do not ask if you are all right because they know you are not, and there is nothing to be done about it. These women become your teachers, though they never say they are teaching you. They show you how to move quietly so you do not wake him when he is drunk. They show you how to hide when his temper rises. They show you which herbs can prevent pregnancy, though they speak of this in whispers, because preventing pregnancy is a sin, but dying in childbirth is God's will, and sometimes God's will needs help. You learn to read his moods like weather, the way his jaw tightens when he is angry, the way his hands clench when he is looking for something to hit, the way his eyes go flat when he stops seeing you as human and starts seeing you as target. You learn to make yourself small, to speak quietly, to move carefully, to disappear when disappearing might save you from his fists. The first time he hits you, it is because the bread is burned. You left it too long in the oven because you were thinking about your sister who died, about how she used to sing while she worked, about how her voice would have filled this house and made it less like a tomb. But thinking is dangerous for wives. Thinking means not paying attention to your husband's needs. Not paying attention means punishment. His hand connects with your cheek with a sound like meat hitting stone. The force of it knocks you sideways, and your hip crashes into the edge of the table. Pain blooms bright and hot across your face. Your eye begins to swell immediately. You taste blood where your teeth cut your lip. He tells you this is your fault. You made him do this. If you were a better wife, he would not have to teach you lessons. You do not cry because crying makes him angrier. You do not fight back because fighting back makes him hit harder. You do not run because there is nowhere to run to. You stand very still and wait for it to be over. Wait for him to tire of hurting you. Wait for him to go back to ignoring you. Sometimes being ignored is the closest you come to safety. The next morning, your face is purple and swollen. You cannot open your left eye all the way. Your lip is split and crusted with dried blood. The other wives see this when you go to the well for water. They say nothing, but their faces tell you they understand. They have all had mornings like this. They have all learned to measure their words and watch their steps, and hope today is not the day their husband kills them. Weeks pass, then months. You learn the rhythm of your new life. Wake before dawn, cook his breakfast, clean the house, cook his dinner, endure his attention, sleep when he allows it. Repeat, repeat, repeat. This is marriage. This is what your parents sold you into. This is what the church calls holy and blessed and ordained by God. Your monthly bleeding stops coming, and you know what this means. You know what is growing inside you. You know what this will cost you. Your mother died birthing her 7th child. Your sister died birthing her first. Your neighbor died last spring when the baby got stuck and they could not pull it free. The midwife worked for hours, but some babies do not want to be born, and some mothers do not survive the trying. You tell your husband you are with child, and he smiles for the first time since your wedding day. This is what he bought you for. This is your purpose, to grow his sons in your belly and push them out screaming into the world. If you die in the process, that is unfortunate, but not tragic. Wives can be replaced. Bloodlines cannot. The sickness starts soon after. You cannot keep food down. The smell of cooking meat makes you retch until your stomach is empty and your throat burns. Your husband is not patient with this weakness. He tells you other women do not complain so much. Other women do their duties without making a fuss. You are spoiled and soft and need to learn to suffer properly. Your body changes in ways that frighten you. Your breasts swell and ache constantly. Your back hurts from the weight you carry in front. Your feet swell until your shoes no longer fit. You walk barefoot through winter because your husband will not buy you larger shoes. Pregnant wives do not need comfort. Pregnant wives need to remember their place. The baby moves inside you like a fish swimming in too small a pond. Sometimes the movements are gentle, sometimes they hurt. Sometimes you wonder if the baby knows what kind of world it is being born into, if it knows its mother is property and its father is the owner, if it knows that love is rare here and kindness rarer still. Other women tell you stories while you sew baby clothes from scraps of fabric, stories about births that went wrong, about babies born blue and silent, about mothers who bled until they were empty, about children who lived just long enough to break their parents' hearts. These stories are meant to prepare you, but they only make you more afraid. You dream about dying in childbirth, about bleeding to death on the straw mattress, while your husband counts the cost of replacing you, about your baby growing up without ever knowing your face or your voice or the songs you might have sung, about becoming just another name carved into a wooden marker in the churchyard, another woman who died doing what women were supposed to do. The labor pains start on a Tuesday morning in late winter. They feel like being stabbed from the inside, like having your bones broken while someone holds you down, like being torn apart slowly by invisible hands. The midwife comes, but she is old and half blind, and her hands shake when she examines you. She tells you this will take time. First babies always take time. Hours pass. The pain comes in waves that build and crash and build again. You scream until your voice is gone. You bite the leather strap they give you until your jaw aches. You grip your husband's hand until your nails draw blood, but he pulls away because your pain makes him uncomfortable. Men do not watch women birth children. Men wait outside and drink ale and hope for sons. The baby does not want to come. It sits inside you like a stone, like something dead that needs to be dug out. The midwife reaches inside you with fingers that feel like knives. She pushes and pulls, and you feel something tear. Blood soaks the mattress. Blood runs down your legs. Blood pools on the floor beneath you. You drift in and out of consciousness. Sometimes you're in the room with the midwife and the pain. Sometimes you are somewhere else. Somewhere your sister is singing and your mother is young and married is still just a word adults use. Sometimes you think you are dying, and sometimes you hope you are. The baby comes finally just as the sun sets, comes with a rush of blood and water, and pieces of you that you did not know could come apart. The midwife holds it up, and it is small and blue and does not cry. She turns it upside down and strikes its back until it makes a sound like a cat mewing. Then it cries properly, and the sound fills the room like hope. It is a girl. This is disappointment. Girls are not worth the pain they cost to birth. Girls cannot carry on the family name, or work the fields, or support their parents in old age. Girls are just future wives, future property, future women who will suffer as you are suffering now. You look at her tiny red face and feel love and despair in equal measure. Your husband takes one look at his daughter and leaves the room. He does not hold her. He does not name her. He does not smile. He goes to the tavern and drinks until he forgets he has a daughter instead of a son. Until he forgets he paid good money for a wife who cannot even birth males properly. You have failed him already, and the baby is not an hour old. The bleeding does not stop after the birth. It slows, but it does not stop. The midwife packs you with rags and herbs, but the blood soaks through everything. She tells you this is normal. This is how women's bodies work. But her eyes are worried, and she will not meet your gaze. You know what she is not saying. You know you might not live to see your daughter grow up. Days pass in fever and weakness. You cannot get out of bed. You cannot lift your baby to feed her. The other women take turns coming to care for you both. They bring soup you cannot taste, and herbs that do not help, and prayers that feel empty. They have seen this before. They know how it ends. Your husband grows impatient with your weakness. He needs his meals cooked and his house cleaned and his body serviced. He did not pay for a wife who lies in bed bleeding. He talks about sending you back to your father until you are well enough to work. Your father will not take you. Your father has no use for broken wives. Gradually the bleeding slows. The fever breaks. You live though you are changed, hollow, fragile, like something that has been broken and badly mended. You can walk, but not far. You can work, but not hard. You can smile, but it feels like wearing a mask. The woman you were before is gone. In her place is someone who knows exactly how little her life is worth. Your daughter grows despite everything. She learns to smile and sit and crawl and walk. She learns words and songs and games. She is beautiful in the way all children are beautiful before the world teaches them they are not. You watch her and see yourself at that age. See the girl you were before you became property. See the woman she will become when her time comes. Other babies follow because that is what wives do. They birth children until their bodies break or they die trying. Some of your babies live, some do not. Each birth is a roll of dice where the stakes are your life and your child's life and your husband's patience. Each birth leaves you weaker. Each birth takes something from you that does not grow back. Your husband ages into cruelty. What started as occasional violence becomes daily routine. He hits you for burning dinner and for not burning dinner, for speaking too loudly and for being too quiet, for looking at him wrong and for not looking at him enough, for existing in ways that displease him, for breathing air he thinks you have not earned. You learn to hide bruises with careful clothing and powder ground from chalk and herbs. You learn to explain split lips and black eyes as clumsiness, as accidents, as anything other than what they are. The other women know the truth, but speaking truth about husbands is dangerous. Speaking truth can get you beaten worse, can get you cast out, can get you killed. Your children grow up watching their father hurt their mother. This is their education in marriage, in what men do to women, in what women are expected to endure. Your sons learn they can take what they want. Your daughters learn they must give what is taken. The cycle continues because cycles always continue unless someone breaks them, and no one here has the strength to break anything. Years pass like water through a sieve. Each year takes something from you. Your youth, your health, your hope, your memory of who you were before you became a wife. You look in the mirror and see a stranger, a woman bent by labor and scarred by violence and aged beyond her years. You are 30, but you look 50. You are alive, but you are not living. Your oldest daughter turns 12, and your husband begins to talk about finding her a husband, about the bride price she might bring, about the house she will move to and the man she will serve. You watch him count coins and measure her worth, and you see yourself at 12 standing in a church promising to obey. The cycle turns, the wheel grinds forward. Nothing changes because nothing can change. You try to warn her in ways that cannot be spoken aloud. You teach her to be small and quiet and careful. You teach her to read men's moods and avoid their anger. You teach her skills that have nothing to do with being a good wife and everything to do with surviving marriage. But what you really want to teach her is how to run, how to disappear, how to choose death over a lifetime of slow dying. She is promised to a man twice her age, with hands like your husband's hands and breath like your husband's breath. The coins change hands, the contracts are signed, the church is reserved. You attend her wedding wearing the same dress you wore to your own wedding, because wedding dresses are passed from mother to daughter like curses, like chains, like inherited pain. You watch your daughter say the words you said: promise to obey, promise to serve, promise to submit. You watch her walk away with her new owner, and you know you will never see the girl she was again, only the woman she will become, the broken, bent, careful woman who will learn to hide bruises and swallow screams and call it love, because that is what women do here. That is what women have always done. Your body begins to fail in ways that are permanent. Your back curves from years of bending. Your hands twist with pain from decades of hard work. Your teeth fall out from poor food and poor care. You move slowly now, carefully, like someone walking on ice that might break at any moment. Your husband speaks sometimes of taking a younger wife, someone who can work harder and birth sons, someone whose body has not been used up in his service. You know this day will come. You know he will discard you like a worn-out tool when you are no longer useful. There is no pension for wives, no reward for faithful service, no rest for women who have given everything and have nothing left to give. You wonder sometimes what would have happened if you had been born a boy, if you could have learned a trade or inherited land or chosen your own path, if your body had been your own instead of property to be sold and used and discarded. But these thoughts are dangerous. These thoughts lead to madness. Better to focus on getting through each day, each hour, each moment. The other wives your age are dying now, some in childbirth still, some from fevers that will not break, some from accidents that might not have been accidents. Some simply stop, breathing in their sleep, as if their bodies have decided enough is enough. You attend their funerals and wonder when yours will be, wonder who will come, wonder if anyone will remember the girl you were before you became a wife. Your grandchildren are born, and you see your daughter's pain reflected in their births. See her struggle with the same choices you struggled with, the same lack of choices, the same understanding that love and pain are inseparable here, that marriage and suffering are synonymous, that being female is a burden passed from mother to daughter, like an heirloom no one wants, but everyone must accept. You grow, old in ways that feel both fast and slow. Fast because the years blur together in endless repetition. Slow because each day is a small eternity of endurance, of surviving until sunset, of hoping tomorrow might be gentler, though tomorrow is never gentler. Tomorrow is just today with different weather. Your husband dies before you do, which is a mercy, though you do not call it that aloud. He dies in his sleep, which is more peace than he ever gave you. You stand at his grave and feel nothing, not grief, not relief, nothing. You have been emptied of feeling by decades of marriage. You are a shell that once held a person, an echo of someone who might have been. Without a husband, you have no value and no place. Your sons do not want you. Your daughters cannot help you. You are too old to remarry and too poor to live alone. You become a burden passed between relatives who feed you scraps and grudge you space by their fires. You who spent your life serving others now depend on their reluctant charity. You die finally on a winter morning when the cold settles in your lungs and will not leave. You die quietly, without fanfare or mourning. You die as you lived after. Marriage invisible, forgotten, unimportant. Your grave marker is a piece of wood with your husband's name on it, because even in death you belong to him. Even in death, you are not your own. The women who attend your burial know your story because it is their story too. They know the price of being female in a world that values women only for what can be taken from them. They know the cost of marriage when marriage is ownership. They know the weight of vows that bind only half the people who speak them. Your daughter stands at your grave holding her own daughter's hand. 3 generations of women learning the same lesson, learning to be small, learning to endure, learning to call suffering love. The little girl asks why grandmother looks so sad in the paintings. Your daughter tells her that is just how women look. This is how women have always looked. This is how women will always look until the world changes or ends. But the world does not change. The world grinds forward like a mill wheel, crushing grain, crushing women, crushing hope, crushing the dreams of little girls who do not yet know they are property, who do not yet understand that their lives are not their own, who still believe in love stories and happy endings and choices. More girls are born, more girls grow up, more girls are sold in marriage to men who see them as livestock. The cycle turns, the wheel spins, the pattern repeats because this is how things have always been and how things must always be, because God wills it, because nature demands it, because men write the laws and women follow them. In the villages and towns and cities, the same stories play out again and again. Young girls promised to old men, women dying in childbirth, wives beaten for imagined crimes, mothers watching their daughters sold into the same bondage that destroyed them. The faces change, but the story stays the same. The merchants count their profits from bride prices paid and dowries received. The priests count their fees from wedding ceremonies and funeral masses. The men count their property in wives and daughters and livestock. Everyone counts something except the women who are counted, who are weighed and measured and valued and sold, but never asked what they might choose if choosing were possible. In the great houses, the ladies embroider and play music and write poetry about courtly love, while their servants empty chamber, pots and scrub floors, and birth the illegitimate children of noble men. Romance is for those who can afford it. Love is for those who have the luxury of choice. For everyone else, there is duty and endurance and the hope that death comes quickly when it comes. The seasons turn and the years pass, and still nothing changes for women. Still they are married off like livestock and beaten like slaves and worked until their bodies break. Still they birth children in blood and pain and die forgotten in unmarked graves. Still the cycle continues because breaking cycles requires power, and women have no power here, have never had power, will never have power here as long as marriage is ownership and women are property and men make all the rules. This is the truth of medieval marriage stripped of romance and ceremony and lies. This is what happened when love was luxury and survival was the only choice, when women were things to be bought and sold and used and discarded, when marriage was a transaction between men and women with a currency, when vows meant nothing and contracts meant everything, and death was often the only escape from a life of sanctified slavery. The stories end, but they never really end, because they are happening still in the villages and towns scattered across the land, in the houses where young wives lie awake, listening to their husbands, snore and planning escapes they will never attempt, in the churches where little girls promise to obey men they have never met, in the graveyards where women are buried under their husbands' names as if they never had names of their own. And somewhere tonight, another girl is born who will grow up to learn these same lessons, who will discover that being female is a burden, and marriage is a cage, and love is a word men use to justify ownership, who will join the long line of women who suffered in silence and died without complaint and called it blessed because they had no other words for it. The wheel turns, the cycle continues, the stories repeat. This is how it was, this is how it is. This is how it will always be until someone finds the strength to break the pattern or the world ends trying. But tonight, the world sleeps on and the stories continue. And somewhere, a girl child takes her first breath in a world that has already decided her fate, already measured her worth, already planned her suffering, already forgotten her dreams. Sleep now. Rest in the knowledge that these times have passed, though their echoes remain. Rest knowing that some cages have been opened, though others remain locked. Rest knowing that some women have choices now, though choice came too late for the women in these stories. Rest knowing that change is possible even when it seems impossible, even when the wheel has been turning the same direction for so long, that no one remembers it could turn differently. Sleep now and dream of women who were more than property, who had names of their own and dreams of their own, and lives of their own. Dream of marriages that were partnerships instead of ownership. Dream of love that did not require suffering. Dream of a world where little girls grow up knowing they belong to themselves and no one else. Dream and rest, and let these old sorrows fade into the darkness where they belong. The stories are finished now. The voices are quiet. The wheel still turns, but more slowly now, more carefully, with more awareness of what it crushes beneath it. Sleep now, and let the night carry away the weight of these old tragedies. Let the morning bring lighter dreams and gentler truths. Let the darkness take these sorrows and transform them into wisdom, into understanding, into the knowledge that bearing witness to suffering is the first step toward ending it. But wait, there's something I haven't told you yet. Something that makes everything you've heard so far seem almost gentle by comparison. Because what I've described, that was just ordinary marriage. That was the baseline of suffering that every woman could expect. But there were special cases, specific arrangements that went beyond even this normalized horror. And I'm going to tell you about them now. Picture Margaret Beaufort, married at age 6 to John de la Pole, 6 years old, still losing baby teeth, still believing in fairy tale. The marriage was consummated when she turned 9, because 9 was considered old enough to bear children, old enough to die trying. She survived her first husband's death and was immediately remarried to Edmund Tudor. She was pregnant by age 12, giving birth at 13 to the future King Henry VII, her body torn apart before it had finished growing. But Margaret was lucky. She was nobility. She had value beyond her womb. Most girls had nothing. Consider the practice of merchet, a tax that peasant fathers paid their lords for permission to marry off their daughters. But here's what no one talks about. If the father couldn't pay the merchet, the lord could claim the right of prima nocta, the right to bed the bride first, before her husband ever touched her. This wasn't folklore. This wasn't legend. This was law, written into legal documents, enforced by armed men. The church knew about this. The church that blessed these marriages. Pope Alexander III issued decrees against prima nocta in 1179, but enforcement was selective. Lords who donated generously to local monasteries found their customs overlooked, their rights respected, their appetites accommodated, and there's more, so much more that will make you understand why medieval women prayed for death in childbirth. The practice of wife selling didn't end with marriage. It continued throughout it. Thomas Hardy wrote about this centuries later, but he was documenting reality, not fiction. Husbands who grew tired of their wives could sell them at market like livestock, literally, with halters around their necks. Buyers examined teeth and limbs and breeding potential. Children watched their mothers sold to strangers, watched them led away like cattle, never to be seen again. But even that seems merciful compared to what happened in cases of suspected adultery. In the year 1243, a woman named Agnes de Clare was accused of sleeping with her husband's brother. The evidence: she smiled at him. During a feast, that was enough. Her punishment: to be sewn into a sack with a cat, a dog, a rooster, and a snake, then thrown into the river. This was called poena kuli, the punishment of the sack. The animals would claw and bite each other in terror, would claw and bite her. The sack would fill with water slowly, very slowly. Agnes de Clare was innocent. Everyone knew she was innocent. But innocence wasn't the point. Terror was the point. Making sure every other wife understood what happened to women who smiled at the wrong moment, who looked at the wrong man, who forgot their place, even briefly. And I haven't even told you about the marriage markets yet, about the fairs where fathers brought their daughters to be inspected by potential buyers, where girls as young as 8 stood naked while men checked for defects, for signs of disease, for proof of virginity, where hymen examinations were performed in public by midwives paid to lie about what they found. In the city of Genoa, there were official documents called carta di vendita, bills of sale, for wives. The going rate for a healthy girl under 15 was about the same as a good horse. Older women, widows, previously married stock, they sold for less than goats. But here's what's truly insane about all this. What makes the whole system so perfectly designed for maximum suffering? The law of coverture meant that married women could not own property, could not enter contracts, could not testify in court, could not even be considered legal persons separate from their husbands. They were femme covert, covered women, hidden under their husband's legal identity like shadows. This meant that when a husband beat his wife to death, he was legally destroying his own property. The crime wasn't murder, it was waste, damaging goods that belonged to him. The penalty was a fine, not for killing a person, for breaking a thing, And the church supported all of this with careful theology. St. Paul's letters were read at every wedding. Wives, submit to your husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let wives be subject to their husbands in everything. Everything. That word carried legal weight, meant sexual access whenever demanded, meant beatings when disobedience required correction, meant silence when screaming might disturb the neighbors. Everything meant everything. But wait, it gets worse. Because what I've told you so far assumes the marriage actually happened, assumes the girls survived the wedding ceremony. Many didn't. In regions where bride price was particularly high, families sometimes staged elaborate fake weddings, collected the money, then murdered the bride before consummation to avoid having to support her. The groom got his money back. The family kept the advance payment. The girl got a shallow grave in unconsecrated ground. This happened often enough that some regions required the bride to survive at least 1 month of marriage before bride price was considered final payment. 1 month, 30 days, to prove she was worthy of staying alive. And for those who did survive, who made it past the wedding night and the first month and the first year, they faced the reality of medieval contraception, which wasn't contraception at all. It was poison. Women drank mercury, arsenic, lead dissolved in wine. They inserted pessaries made from crocodile dung and honey into their bodies. They jumped backwards off tables while someone else counted to ensure they jumped the right number of times. They believed that drinking the water used to wash a dead person would prevent pregnancy. Many of these methods worked by killing the woman trying them. Those who survived the poison faced other choices: herbal abortifacients that caused massive bleeding, surgical procedures performed by blacksmiths with dirty tools, attempts to dislodge pregnancies by having large men jump on their stomachs. The mortality rate for these procedures was close to 100%, but women chose them anyway because the alternative was bearing 20 children and watching half of them die and dying themselves by 40 if they were very lucky. Now picture this. You're a woman in 1350. The Black Death is spreading across Europe. Half the population is dying. Your husband catches plague, dies in agony over 6 days, vomits blood, develops buboes the size of apples in his groin and armpits. You nurse him faithfully, clean his waist, hold his head while he retches, watch him die. Are you free now? Can you inherit his property? Can you make choices about your own life? No, you cannot, because the law of coverture doesn't end with death. It transfers. You become the property of your husband's nearest male relative, his brother, his father, his cousin, his son if he's old enough. If there are no male relatives, you revert to your own father's ownership. If your father is dead, to your oldest brother. If you have no brothers, to your uncle. If no uncles exist, you become a ward of the local lord. You are never, ever your own person. And this system was so entrenched, so completely accepted, that when the occasional woman tried to resist it, the response was immediate and brutal. In 1297, a woman named Juliana of Norwich claimed that God spoke to her directly, that she didn't need a priest or a husband to interpret divine will. She was declared a heretic, stripped naked in the town square, branded with hot irons, then buried alive up to her neck and left for 3 days so people could throw stones at her head. When she finally died, they dug up her body and burned it, scattered the ashes, declared her name forbidden to speak. Her crime? Claiming that women could have direct relationships with God, that they didn't need male intermediaries, that they possessed souls worthy of divine attention. This was considered more dangerous than theft, more threatening than murder, more worthy of punishment than treason. But here's the detail that makes all this even more disturbing. The thing that shows how completely this system penetrated every aspect of society, even the rebels, even the women who fought back, even they internalized their own worthlessness. When Joan of Arc was captured and put on trial, she defended herself brilliantly, outwitted trained theologians, exposed contradictions in church doctrine, demonstrated intelligence that amazed her captors. But when they accused her of the ultimate crime, the unforgivable sin, she broke down completely. What was this crime that terrified her more than death by burning? They accused her of refusing to submit to a husband, of placing her relationship with God above her duty to serve a man, of thinking herself worthy, of making choices. Joan of Arc, who drove the English out of France, who changed the course of European history, who commanded armies and defeated seasoned generals. She could face death by fire with courage. but she could not face the accusation that she had forgotten her place as a woman. This is how deep the poison went, how completely women had been convinced of their own worthlessness. Even the exceptional ones, even the ones history remembers, even they believed they deserved to suffer, and the suffering was constant, relentless, designed to break spirits before it broke bodies. Consider the ritual of churching. After childbirth, women were considered unclean, contaminated. They could not enter churches or touch holy objects or prepare food for their families. They had to remain isolated for 40 days alone with their pain and their fear, and their milk coming in with no baby to feed if the baby died, which babies did frequently. When the 40 days ended, the woman had to undergo a purification ceremony, had to confess the sin of giving birth, had to beg forgiveness for the crime of bleeding, had to pay money to the church for the privilege of being declared clean enough to exist in civilized society again. If she couldn't pay, she remained unclean, permanently, could never enter a church again, could never take communion, could never be buried in consecrated ground. Her own children were forbidden to touch her. Her husband could discard her without penalty. She became a walking dead person, alive but not permitted to live. And this was for successful births, for healthy babies, for women who did everything right and still had to apologize for doing what God supposedly designed them to do, for unsuccessful births, for stillborn babies or children who died within hours. The punishment was even worse. These deaths were evidence of the mother's sin, proof that God found her unworthy, evidence that she had failed in her most basic function as a woman. Such women were often accused of infanticide, even when the death was clearly natural. They were tortured until they confessed to crimes they didn't commit, then executed as child murderers, their bodies denied burial, their names struck from church records, their other children declared bastards and turned out onto the streets. This happened so frequently that midwives developed elaborate protocols for dealing with questionable births. They carried signed statements from priests, witness testimonies, medical documentation, anything that might protect a grieving mother from being tortured to death for the crime of losing a child. But even these precautions often failed because the system required scapegoats, required someone to blame when things went wrong, and women were always the most convenient targets. In 1346, the Black Death killed 60% of Europe's population. Entire villages disappeared, trade networks collapsed, the social order crumbled. Who did people blame? Not the rats that carried the fleas that carried the disease, not the unsanitary conditions that allowed plague to spread, not the wars that weakened immune systems and destroyed infrastructure. They blamed women, specifically women who had somehow angered God, women who had failed to submit properly to their husbands, women who had been insufficiently grateful for their suffering, women who had complained too loudly or resisted too openly, or simply existed in ways that suggested they thought they mattered. The solution was obvious: more control, stricter enforcement, harsher punishments. Laws were passed requiring women to wear specific colors that indicated their marital status. Married women wore brown, unmarried women wore gray, widows wore black. Prostitutes were forced to wear yellow stripes so everyone would know what they were. Women caught wearing the wrong colors were publicly stripped and whipped. Their heads were shaved. They were branded on the forehead with letters indicating their crime: D for disobedience, P for pride, R for resistance. And still, even with all this, even with every aspect of society designed to crush them, some women found ways to resist. Small ways, dangerous ways, ways that cost them everything. They formed secret networks, passed information about abortifacients, shared knowledge about which husbands were likely to kill their wives and which were merely brutal. They created codes, hand signals, ways of warning each other about danger. Some learned to read and write despite laws forbidding it. They copied recipes for medicines, recorded stories, preserved knowledge that would otherwise have been lost. They hid these writings in hollow trees, in buried pots, in places where men would never think to look. Others used their marriages strategically, convinced their husbands to make specific wills, to free particular servants, to donate money to causes that helped women. They worked within the system to undermine the system, knowing that discovery meant death. A few became alewives or bread bakers or herb sellers, positions that gave them small amounts of independence, tiny spaces where they could make decisions. They used these positions to help other women, to provide safe houses, to facilitate escapes. But for every woman who found a way to resist, hundreds died trying. Thousands more died without ever trying, because they knew resistance was hopeless. And the most insidious part of the whole system? It was invisible to the people living in it, normalized to the point where questioning it seemed insane. Men genuinely believed they were protecting women by controlling them. Women genuinely believed they deserved punishment when they suffered. The idea that women might be people, might have rights, might deserve choices. This idea was literally unthinkable, not forbidden. Unthinkable, like trying to imagine colors that don't exist or sounds that can't be heard. This is why the stories matter. Why bearing witness matters. Why remembering matters. Because forgetting how bad things were makes it easier for them to become bad again. Because progress isn't permanent. Because rights can be lost as easily as they were won. The women in these stories are gone now, dead for centuries, their names forgotten, their graves unmarked, their suffering dismissed as inevitable, as natural, as the way things had to be. But their stories remain, whispered in the spaces between official histories, carved into the silence where women's voices should have been, preserved in the careful records of midwives and in the secret writings of women who refused to let truth die with them. These stories are gifts from the dead, warnings from the past, evidence that change is possible because change has happened, proof that systems that seem permanent can be dismantled, that laws that seem natural can be rewritten, that cycles that seem eternal can be broken. The wheel turns more slowly now in most places, more carefully, with more awareness of what lies beneath it, but it still turns, still crushes, still requires vigilance to keep it from speeding up again. Rest now knowing that bearing witness to this suffering honors the women who endured it. Rest knowing that remembering their stories keeps their spirits alive. Rest knowing that understanding the past helps protect the future. Sleep and let these old sorrows settle into wisdom. Let them become strength for the work that still needs doing. Let them remind you that progress is precious and fragile and worth protecting with everything you have. The stories end here, but they echo forward, into tomorrow, into the choices we make and the laws we write and the world we build for the daughters who will come after us. Let them rest in peace. Let their warnings live forever. Let their courage inspire the work that remains. Sleep now. The wheel turns toward morning.